Dr. Carol Brennan had exactly 12 minutes before her next appointment when the cattle trailer pulled into the parking lot of her small animal clinic in suburban Portland, Oregon.
You can't just send him home
She
like
watched
this.
through
He
the
needs
window
help
as a
now.
battered Ford truck,
Sir, I understand your
mud-caked and
frustration,
clearly
but
from
we are
somewhere
doing
rural,
everything we
maneuvered
can.
the massive livestock trailer into a space designed for sedans. The driver jumped out, looking at his phone with obvious confusion, then at the building's sign. Rose City Pet Care. Cats, dogs, exotic pets. Carol set down her coffee and stepped outside. "Can I help you?" The man was in his 50s, weathered face creased with worry, wearing Carhartt overalls stained with what looked like blood. "This the emergency veterinary clinic on Riverside Drive?" "No, that's Riverside Emergency Animal Hospital. Different side of town, about 20 minutes east," she pointed. "You'll want to take—" "I don't have 20 minutes," his voice cracked. "Please, my bull is dying. I called ahead, they said bring him immediately, and my GPS sent me here. He's in the trailer right now, and I don't think he'll survive another drive." Carol's stomach nodded. "Sir, I'm a small animal veterinarian. I treat cats and dogs, the occasional rabbit. I don't have the equipment or expertise for large animals. You need to get to Riverside. They have large animal specialists on staff." "He's hemorrhaging. Been bleeding internally for 3 hours. I'm begging you. Just look at him. Please." Every instinct told Carol this was a terrible idea. Her malpractice insurance didn't cover livestock. She'd done her large animal rotation in vet school 12 years ago and hadn't touched a cow or horse since. She had a waiting room full of clients with scheduled appointments. But the desperation in the man's eyes reminded her why she'd become a veterinarian in the first place. "Okay, let me see him, but I'm making no promises." His relief was palpable. "Thank you. God, thank you. My name's Curtis Briggs. That bull, his name's Duke. He's everything to me." They walked to the trailer. Curtis opened the back gate, and Carol's breath caught. The bull inside was enormous, easily 2,000 pounds, a Hereford with the distinctive white face and red body. But his condition was obviously critical. He lay on his side, breathing in shallow, rapid gasps. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and viscous. His eyes were glazed, unfocused. "What happened?" Carol asked, her mind already running through differential diagnoses despite her panic. "I don't know. He was fine yesterday evening. This morning I found him like this in the pasture. My regular vet is 3 hours away doing emergency surgery on someone else's horse. He told me to get Duke to Riverside immediately, said they could handle it." Carol climbed into the trailer carefully. Duke didn't react to her presence, a bad sign. She placed her hand on his flank. His heartbeat was rapid, thready, classic signs of hypovolemic shock from blood loss. "We need to get him inside," she said, "or at least somewhere I can work. How much does he weigh?" "About 2,200 pounds. Her clinic's largest exam table maxed out at 200 pounds. "We can't move him. I'll have to examine him here." Curtis's face fell. "Here? In the parking lot? Unless you've got a better idea." Carol was already pulling out her phone, texting her veterinary assistant. "I need equipment. Give me 5 minutes." Her assistant, Jamie Rodriguez, appeared with a rolling cart of supplies, meant for dogs, but adaptable. Carol grabbed what she needed: stethoscope, blood pressure cuff that wouldn't fit around the bull's leg, but might give readings from his tail portable ultrasound machine. A small crowd had gathered in the parking lot. Her 10 a.m. appointment, Mrs. Patterson with her diabetic cat, stood by her car, watching with concern. 2 other clients had come out of the building. Carol ignored them all and focused on Duke. Initial examination revealed the obvious: severe internal hemorrhaging, but from where? She ran the portable ultrasound over his abdomen, the image quality poor but functional. There, fluid accumulation in the abdominal cavity, lots of it. Blood, almost certainly. "Does he have any history of bleeding disorders?" she asked Curtis. "No. He's 5 years old, never been sick a day in his life. Prize breeding bull. Cost me $40,000 3 years ago, and he's worth 3 times that now." Carol barely heard him. She was looking at the ultrasound image, at something that didn't make sense. The bleeding appeared to be coming from his liver, but the pattern was wrong. Not traumatic injury, not a ruptured vessel, something else. She switched to a different ultrasound mode, increasing the resolution. And there, in the grainy black and white image, she saw it. A mass, large, irregular, clearly vascular, growing from the liver itself. "Oh no," she breathed. "What? What is it?" Curtis demanded. "Your bull has a tumor, a hepatocellular adenoma most likely, based on the appearance. It's ruptured, which is why he's bleeding out." Curtis staggered back against the trailer. "A tumor? But he's only 5. Bulls don't get cancer that young." "They do, actually. It's rare, but it happens." Carol was thinking fast, running through options. "The rupture is life-threatening. He needs surgery immediately. We have to remove the affected portion of the liver and control the bleeding." "But Curtis, I have to be honest with you. I'm not qualified for this. You need a large animal surgeon, someone with experience in bovine hepatic resection. Riverside has..." "He won't make it to Riverside. You said it yourself. He's in shock. Moving him now would kill him." Carol looked at the bull, at the blood still seeping, at his labored breathing. Curtis was right. Duke had maybe an hour left, probably less. "Even if I tried," she said carefully, "the odds are terrible. I've never done surgery on an animal this size. I don't have the right equipment, the anesthesia alone. But you could try? You know how to stop bleeding, how to remove a tumor?" "In theory, yes. The principles are the same whether it's a 10-pound dog or a 2,000-pound bull. But theory and practice are very different things." Curtis grabbed her arm, his grip desperate. "Dr. Brennan, I'm not asking you to guarantee success. I'm asking you to try. Duke is all I have left. My farm went under 2 years ago. Drought killed my crops, debt took everything else. Duke is my breeding business, my only income. If he dies, I lose everything. Please, just try." Carol looked into Curtis's eyes and saw the same desperation she'd seen in dozens of pet owners facing impossible choices. The same fear, the same love, the same hope against hope. She thought about her malpractice insurance, her reputation, the very real possibility of failure, the crowd of clients watching from the parking lot, some recording on their phones. Then she thought about why she'd spent 8 years in school, taken on massive debt, chosen this profession. Not for the easy cases, not for the routine checkups and vaccine boosters, for moments exactly like this. "Okay," she said. "I'll try." Carol's hands moved on autopilot, her training taking over even as her mind screamed that this was insane. "Jamie, call Dr. Marcus Odom at Riverside. Tell him we have a critical bovine case, hemorrhaging hepatic mass, and I need him on speakerphone immediately." Jamie's eyes went wide, but she didn't question it. She disappeared into the clinic. "Curtis, I need you to help me. We're doing this surgery right here in the trailer. No time to move him, and honestly, it's probably safer this way. Less stress on his system." "What do you need?" "First, call anyone you know who might have large animal anesthesia experience. A farm vet, a livestock handler, anyone. We need someone who knows bovine sedation protocols." She was already calculating drug dosages in her head, multiplying everything she knew about dogs by factors of 20. Mrs. Patterson approached tentatively. "Dr. Brennan? My husband is a retired large animal vet. He's at home. I can call him." Carol could have kissed her. "Do it. Now. Tell him to bring anything he has. Drugs, equipment, anything for bovine emergency surgery." Within minutes, Carol's quiet suburban parking lot transformed into an impromptu emergency room. Jamie returned with Dr. Odom on speakerphone. Mrs. Patterson's husband, Dr. Ayo, Leonard Hayes, arrived in his pickup truck with a veterinary kit that looked like it belonged in a museum but was perfectly functional. "Jesus Christ," Hayes muttered, looking at Duke. "You're actually going to do this here?" "Do I have a choice?" Carol shot back. "No, you don't." He opened his kit. "I've got xylazine and ketamine, enough to sedate him for maybe 90 minutes if we're lucky. After that, we're gambling." Dr. Odom's voice crackled through Jamie's phone. "Carol, listen to me carefully. You're looking at a right hepatic lobe resection, probably. The liver has remarkable regenerative capacity in cattle. If you can remove the damaged section and control the bleeding, he has a chance. But you need to be fast. Every minute counts." "Walk me through it," Carol said, scrubbing her hands with antiseptic while Jamie set up a makeshift sterile field using every clean towel in the clinic. For the next 10 minutes, Odom gave her a crash course in bovine liver surgery while Hayes administered the sedation. Duke's breathing slowed, his massive body relaxing as the drugs took effect. "We've got maybe an hour before the anesthesia wears off," Hayes warned. "Cattle metabolize these drugs faster than you'd expect. You need to be in and out." Carol made the incision, a long lateral cut through Duke's abdominal wall. Blood welled up immediately, obscuring her view. Jamie suctioned frantically while Carol worked by feel as much as sight, her hands navigating anatomy she'd only seen in textbooks a decade ago. "There," she breathed. "I can feel the mass. It's huge, size of a grapefruit, attached to the right lobe, just like Odom said." "Can you remove it?" Curtis asked from where he stood, pale and shaking, holding Duke's head. "I'm going to try." Carol isolated the blood vessels feeding the tumor, clamping them one by one with hemostats designed for dogs but somehow working on a bull. Each clamp was a small victory. Each vessel controlled was one less source of bleeding. "Scalpel," she said to Jamie, who handed it to her with trembling fingers. Carol began cutting the diseased portion of liver away from the healthy tissue. It was delicate, brutal work. The liver tissue tore easily, bled profusely. But she'd done this before, just on a smaller scale. A Labrador with a liver tumor last year, a cat with hepatic lipidosis the year before. The principles were the same. The principles had to be the same. "Carol, his blood pressure is dropping," Hayes warned, monitoring Duke's vitals. "You're losing him." "Almost there," she muttered, her world narrowed to the few inches of tissue in front of her. One more vessel. One more cut. The tumor came free in her hands. Grotesque, bloody, heavy. "Got it." She tossed it aside and began the painstaking work of closing blood vessels, suturing torn tissue, controlling the hemorrhage that had nearly killed Duke. 20 minutes later, she stepped back. "Jamie, start the closure. Layer by layer, just like we practiced." Together they closed Duke's abdomen. Muscle, fascia, skin. Each suture was placed with care despite the crude conditions. When the last stitch was tied, Carol sagged against the trailer wall. "Is he going to make it?" Curtis asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Carol admitted. "The next 24 hours are critical. He needs blood transfusions, IV fluids, antibiotics, round-the-clock monitoring, none of which I can provide here." "Riverside can take him now." Odom's voice came through the phone. "I've got a team ready. Transport him here. We'll handle the aftercare." Hayes nodded. "He's stable enough to move now. Barely, but enough." As they prepared Duke for transport, Mrs. Patterson approached Carol. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen." Carol looked down at her blood-soaked scrubs, her shaking hands. "That was the most terrifying thing I've ever done." But Duke was breathing steadily now, his color improving. Against all odds, he'd survived the surgery. Curtis gripped Carol's hand. "Thank you. Whatever happens, thank you for trying." As the trailer pulled away, headed for Riverside, Carol finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. She'd performed surgery completely outside her expertise in a parking lot on an animal worth over $100,000. She could lose her license, face a lawsuit, be ruined professionally, or she'd just saved a life no one else could have saved. Jamie touched her shoulder. "Dr. Brennan, Mrs. Patterson's diabetic cat is still waiting." Carol laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "Right, back to regular work." But as she walked into the clinic, she knew nothing would ever be regular again. 3 days passed. Carol heard nothing from Curtis or Riverside Hospital. She tried to focus on her regular patients, a Labrador with an ear infection, a parrot with a broken wing, endless vaccine appointments. But her mind kept drifting to Duke. Had he survived? Had the surgery held? Or had she simply prolonged his suffering for nothing? On Thursday morning, her receptionist buzzed her. "Dr. Brennan, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." Carol stepped into the waiting room and stopped cold. Curtis stood there, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was a woman in her 40s wearing a tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind them, a man with a professional camera. "Dr. Brennan," Curtis said, his face breaking into a smile. Duke made it. He's recovering at Riverside. Dr. Odom says you saved his life. Relief flooded through Carol so powerfully her knees almost buckled. That's wonderful. This is Patricia Vance, Curtis continued, gesturing to the woman. She's a reporter with Oregon Agricultural Review, and this is her photographer, Neil. They want to do a story about what you did. A story? Carol's relief instantly transformed into anxiety. Patricia stepped forward, extending her hand. Dr. Brennan, what you accomplished was extraordinary. A small animal vet performing emergency liver resection on a 2,000-pound bull in a parking lot? That's news. Agricultural news, veterinary news, human interest news. I was just doing my job. You were doing someone else's job, Patricia corrected, and you saved an animal and a man's livelihood that would have died otherwise. Curtis has agreed to an interview. We'd like your perspective, too. Every instinct told Carol to refuse. Publicity meant scrutiny. Scrutiny meant the Oregon Veterinary Medical Board asking questions about licensing, about operating outside her specialty, about liability. But Curtis was looking at her with such gratitude, such hope. Okay, she heard herself say. One interview. The article published the following Monday. Small animal vet performs miracle surgery on prize bull, ran across agricultural websites, was picked up by local news, then regional news. By Tuesday, Carol's phone was ringing constantly. Other veterinarians called, some congratulating her, others criticizing her for working outside her specialty. The Oregon VMB sent a formal letter requesting a meeting to discuss the incident. Her malpractice insurance company called 3 times. But other calls came too. A rancher in eastern Oregon whose horse had a mysterious tumor. A dairy farmer whose cow was in crisis and couldn't reach his regular vet. People who'd heard about the miracle vet who'd saved Duke against impossible odds. Dr. Brennan, Jamie said on Wednesday afternoon, you've got 17 messages from people with large animals. What do I tell them? Tell them I'm a small animal vet. Give them referrals to proper large animal practices. I tried that. They say they want you specifically, that you're the one who doesn't give up on impossible cases. Carol sat in her office that night, long after the clinic closed, staring at the messages. She thought about Duke, about that moment in the parking lot when she'd decided to try despite the risks. Her phone rang. Dr. Odom from Riverside. Carol, I wanted to give you an update on Duke. He's recovering beautifully, already walking, eating normally. You did remarkable work. I got lucky, Carol said. Luck had nothing to do with it. But that's not why I'm calling. We need to talk about what you found. The tumor? I sent it to pathology. Carol, it wasn't an adenoma. It was a hemangiosarcoma, one of the most aggressive cancers we see in cattle, except it wasn't behaving like one. What do you mean? The tumor had unusual cellular characteristics, markers we've never seen before in bovine cancer. I forwarded the samples to Oregon State's Veterinary Research Division. They want to study it. Think it might provide insights into cancer behavior and treatment. Carol leaned back in her chair. You're telling me Duke's tumor could lead to research? Possibly significant research. If we can understand why his cancer presented atypically, we might develop better diagnostic tools, maybe even treatment protocols. But here's the thing. If Duke had died, if you hadn't removed that tumor intact, we'd never have known. The tissue would have degraded, the opportunity lost. After hanging up, Carol sat in silence. The wrong address, the impossible surgery, the unexpected discovery. Each accident building on the last, creating something that shouldn't have been possible. Her phone buzzed, a text from Curtis. Duke's coming home tomorrow. Want you to be there when he arrives. You saved more than his life. You saved mine too. Carol looked at the stack of messages from desperate people with animals no one else would treat. She thought about her malpractice insurance, her VMB meeting next week, all the reasons she should stay in her lane. Then she thought about Duke, alive because she'd been willing to try. She picked up the phone and started returning calls. The Oregon Veterinary Medical Board meeting took place in a sterile conference room in Salem. 5 board members sat across from Carol, their expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. Dr. Richard Paulson, the board chair, opened the file in front of him. Dr. Brennan, you performed major surgery on a bovine patient, a species outside your licensed specialty, in a parking lot with inadequate equipment and supervision. Do you understand the severity of this violation? Carol kept her voice steady. I understand your concerns, but that bull would have died if I'd refused to help. That's not your determination to make, another board member interjected. You're licensed for small animal practice, period. What you did was reckless, dangerous, and it worked, Carol interrupted. Duke is alive. The tumor I removed is now being studied by researchers at Oregon State. The pathology findings could change how we diagnose and treat bovine cancers. Dr. Paulson leaned forward. The outcome doesn't justify the risk. What if Duke had died on your operating table? What if complications arose from inadequate anesthesia protocols? You could have been sued into oblivion and you'd have deserved it. I consulted with Dr. Odom at Riverside throughout the procedure. Dr. Hayes, a retired large animal vet, supervised anesthesia. I didn't work alone. I assembled the best team available under impossible circumstances. A team assembled in minutes for a surgery that should have been planned for hours, Paulson countered. Dr. Brennan, we're not disputing your skill or your intentions. We're questioning your judgment. The room fell silent. Carol knew what came next. A formal reprimand, possibly suspension, maybe even license revocation. Her career could end right here. Then the door opened. Dr. Odom entered, followed by a woman Carol didn't recognize. Apologies for the interruption, Odom said. But the board needs to hear this. This is Dr. Nina Castellano from Oregon State's Veterinary Research Division. Dr. Castellano placed a folder on the table. The tumor Dr. Brennan removed contains cellular markers we've been searching for in cancer research for over a decade. This one sample has already generated 3 potential research projects. If this bull had died untreated, that opportunity would have been lost forever. That's wonderful, Paulson said. But it doesn't change the fact that it changes everything, Odom interrupted. Carol Brennan did what any good veterinarian should do. She saved a life. Yes, it was outside her specialty. Yes, the conditions were suboptimal, but she made the right call under impossible pressure. Punishing her for that sends a terrible message to every vet in this state. Another board member spoke up. We have protocols for a reason, Dr. Odom. Specializations exist because we need expertise, Odom agreed. But we also need veterinarians who can think on their feet, who put animal welfare above bureaucratic rules. Carol Brennan is exactly the kind of vet we should be celebrating, not prosecuting. The board deliberated for 20 minutes while Carol waited outside, her stomach in knots. Finally, they called her back in. Paulson's expression was unreadable. Dr. Brennan, this board has decided to issue a formal warning. You will complete 20 hours of continuing education in large animal emergency protocols. You will also submit a detailed report of the Duke case for our records. Carol exhaled. That's it? No suspension? That's it. But Dr. Brennan, understand this. You got lucky. The outcome was positive, but it could have easily gone the other way. Don't make us regret this decision. I won't. Thank you. Outside, Odom caught up with her. Carol, I meant what I said in there. What you did was extraordinary. But Paulson's right about one thing. You did get lucky. I know. So here's my proposal. Come work with me at Riverside. Part-time consulting on unusual cases. Small animals are your specialty, but clearly you've got instincts for the complicated stuff. We could use someone who thinks outside the box. Carol stared at him. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity. Think about it. As Carol drove back to Portland, her phone rang. Curtis. Doc, you're not going to believe this. Oregon State wants to study Duke long-term. They're offering to cover all his veterinary care for the next 5 years in exchange for regular monitoring and tissue samples. They say he could be crucial to cancer research. Curtis, that's incredible. It's more than incredible, it's a miracle. And it started because a GPS sent me to the wrong address. Carol thought about that. The wrong address, the impossible surgery, the unexpected discovery, the job offer she'd never imagined. Sometimes the wrong turn leads exactly where you need to go. 6 months later, Carol stood in a university lecture hall at Oregon State, facing 200 veterinary students. Duke stood beside her, calm, healthy, his distinctive white face turned toward the audience with curious eyes. "This is Duke," Carol began. "6 months ago, he arrived at my small animal clinic by mistake, bleeding to death from a ruptured liver tumor. I had 2 choices: follow protocol and send him away, or break every rule and try to save him." She paused, letting the weight of that decision settle over the room. "I chose to try, and yes, I got lucky. The surgery worked. Duke survived. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the most important thing a veterinarian can do is say yes when logic says no." Dr. Castellano joined her on stage. "The tumor Dr. Brennan removed has revolutionized our understanding of bovine hemangiosarcoma. We've identified 3 genetic markers that now help us diagnose this cancer months earlier than before. Lives are being saved because one vet was willing to attempt the impossible." A student raised her hand. "But weren't you scared of losing your license?" "Terrified," Carol admitted. "But I was more scared of Duke dying when I could have helped. Fear of consequences can't override your duty to the animal in front of you." After the lecture, Curtis waited by Duke's trailer. "You ready to take him home?" "More than ready." Carol stroked Duke's neck. "How's the breeding program going?" "Beyond expectations. Duke's genetics are in demand now, not just for breeding quality, but because researchers want to study his offspring for cancer resistance markers. That wrong GPS turn made him one of the most valuable bulls in the Pacific Northwest." Carol worked now 3 days a week at her Portland clinic and 2 days at Riverside, consulting on complex cases. The balance felt right. Routine care grounded her while the challenging cases reminded her why she'd become a vet. Her phone buzzed, Jamie texting, "Emergency cat with urinary blockage just arrived. Need you back ASAP." "Duty calls," Carol said to Curtis. "Take care of Duke." "Always. And Doc? Thank you. For everything." As Carol drove back to Portland, she thought about that morning 6 months ago when a confused farmer and a dying bull had appeared in her parking lot, the wrong address that became the right place. She'd learned something profound. Sometimes miracles aren't divine interventions, they're just people willing to try when everyone else says it's impossible. Duke had taught her that veterinary medicine isn't just about following protocols. It's about recognizing the moment when you have to choose between safe and right. Her clinic came into view. Inside, a cat needed her expertise, her training, her willingness to fight for every patient regardless of size or species or odds. Carol smiled and pulled into the parking lot, the same lot where she'd performed surgery on a bull and accidentally changed both their lives. Some wrong turns, she'd discovered, lead exactly where you're meant to be. And sometimes the greatest discoveries happen when you're brave enough to say yes to the impossible.